ओम सर्वधर्म स्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्म स्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो Ramakrishna te Namaha. We have been studying Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, fifth part, the Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath, and we are studying the fourth chapter. And in the last class, we just went on reading like a intoxicating narrative, but we did not try to understand the implication of it. So let us today start with that. We have seen that the second visit and third visit, Thakur's touches, approaches, and results were totally different. Why it was so and what it is that? In the second visit, first time Thakur touched Narendranath. So in that sense, first, Narendra had a conscious vision that the whole world, including his I-ness, is revolving, resolving, and entering into zero. This was his conscious vision. And he thought that destruction of I is death. So he shouted, "Why are you doing like that? I have my parents." And Thakur had touched him by his feet. And then he put his hand on his chest and said, he laughed and touched his hand in his chest and said, okay, let it not happen now. It will happen in its due course. And Narendra, that strange experience went away. In the third visit, Narendra was not aware at all what happened. And Thakur says, I asked questions to the person living inside Narendra. So his external consciousness had vanished. And the internal person, he replied to Thakur. So what is the difference and why Thakur did like that? Understood anything? After that, Thakur's vision has been described, Saptarshi Mandal. So Thakur knows Narendra's real nature. Real nature means not in the sense of Brahman. Everybody has a spiritual personality. And that Thakur knows. Because he had seen him in the vision. And he had seen that same person is Narendra. He had recognized also. But then he is a Saptarshi. So at Thakur's touch, he should enter Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That is his own nature. And why should he resist? Understood? So it produced a doubt in Thakur's mind. Whether it is the same person whom I saw in the vision. Though he saw clearly, He saw clearly that the person seen in the vision came down to earth, and as soon as he saw Narendra, he recognized him. But this resistance from the point of Narendra, this disturbed, produced a doubt. Now Thakur is all powerful, God that we have seen. So he touched second time. The difference is Thakur was in ecstasy and then he touched Narendra. So he exhibited some special power of his and touched Narendra by his feet. The effect was that Naren lost his external consciousness. The consciousness by which he had thought, I am Vishwanath Datta's son, that is vanished. And what is real Narendra, Thakur questioned and it replied to Thakur. And it tallied with Thakur's vision. So when Thakur asked him, who are you? I am Saptarshi. Why you have come? To help you in your work of establishing religion. Like that. How long will you stay? I will go back after work is done. All these things tallied with Thakur's vision, and then Thakur was satisfied. That is the difference between second and third visit. Understood clearly now? Now, in relation to third visit, a vision of Thakur was described. In that something was wanting, and that is told in the footnote by Saradananda Swami. So, at the end of yesterday, the day before yesterday's talk, there is a footnote. The master described this vision to us in his extraordinary simple language. It is impossible for us to reproduce perfectly that language. Extraordinary simple language. Now, আমাদের পক্ষে অসম্ভব. Why? What it could be? Thakur's simple explanation is there. I will tell you. Thakur's simple, extraordinarily simple language, generally Thakur used slang words. And that Saradananda Swami cannot produce in the book. So he has modified it. Though he is telling as Thakur told, but exactly he cannot reproduce them. Now there is a big testimony, some little conflict also, let me express clear. You know, in Chandigarh there is one Sri Mar Trust. And what is the purpose? They believe that Thakur's word should be used as it is. So they condemn the translation done by Nagpur Ashram in Hindi, Nikhilanjanji in English, and they have their own translations. Now against this, they think Master Macha has written exactly what Thakur spoke. On that basis they are calling, na? And it is not so. In common language, Thakur used to use slang words. And this we know from a letter written by Swami Vivekananda from America to one of his friends in India. Somebody, XYZ, wrote something about Thakur in Thakur's own words. And he sent it to Narendra. So Narendra, Swami Vivekananda is sending to someone other friend. Tell him not to do nonsense. See how beautifully Master Macha changed the language. Understood clearly that Thakur's slang words is all right, but Thakur is not using those words in front of ladies. And the book will be read by all. So it is, strong words are coming from me. It is nonsense to believe that gospel is verbatim. The spirit is there. The same thing is there. But in Master Masha's own words. This is proved by Swamiji's letter. Now, in this context, let me tell something more. Now, what is the translation? Tell me. Hindi or Indian word is anuvad. You put word for an exact English dictionary word. Is that language? That is a translation. Anuvad. The thing is told in a language. You have to understand it. You have to grasp the inner meaning and put in your language. That is anuvad. Anuvad is you speak what you understood. Praman. Master Masha, first of all, after writing the Bengali first volume, he translated himself in English. You know that? Have you read one condensed gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, seen it? Probably your mother is smart. You have not seen? Abridged is something different. Nikhilandi himself has abridged it. There is another book called Condensed Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That has not been condensed. That is Master Masha's own translation of the first part of his Bengali Katham. Master Masha's own translation condensed because Master Masha has not gone chronologically. What he thought best he has written first, next, like that. That is first one. And that in English was called Gospel. The name Gospel is given by Master Masha himself. And he called that translation as Gospel. Now to distinguish it from Nikhilanji's translation, the word has been coined condensed gospel. And if you read the language, I recommend you should read that book. Flowery, biblical language. Flowery language, biblical language. Because that is anuvad, translation. Even English people read it. Especially if the English educated Christians read it. They should grasp it. So how to say we should translate exactly? My Guruji used to tell a fun in Bengali. Of course, their breaking the words are there. You have heard the Bengali Panapukur? No. Pukur means pond, you know that. Now, sometimes that marsh and leaves collect on it in Ganges, you see lot. That is called Pana. So, Panapukur means a pond filled with that leaves. Now, you literally you translate. Panapukur. Lake, no pond. Pa in Bengali is lake. Na means no. Pukur means pond. So Panapukur, too literally translated, will become lake no pond. So my Guru used to say, translation should not be like lake no pond. Understood the whole thing now? And I recommend you should read that book because Master Masha's own translation. Nikhilanji has flattened it. Nikhilanji has translated in our normal colloquial English. And that is more suitable to us. But those Christian-minded or that type of people, Maharaj's own translation, if you go by their Emtra standard, then understood this point? So, from this I deduced all that. Because Saradananda Swamiji said, Thakur's extraordinary simple language we cannot reproduce. It is impossible for us to reproduce perfectly that language. Having no other course left open to us, we have kept his language as far as it lay in our power. That means those words which are plain they have kept and have expressed it briefly here. Briefly. So that means it has been more detailed perhaps. Asking him, the main point now coming, asking him about the child of his vision one day, we came to know that the master himself assumed the form of that child. Now that is the beauty of Thakur. He can objectify his own things. So he is seeing. And he is seeing that the consciousness there becomes congealed as a small child and talks to that Rishi. And Rishi loves that child like anything. Though he likes to be in Samadhi, he said, I am going, you also come, he agreed. That is the relation. So, Thakur is seeing himself as the child. This reminds me. Swamiji has told about Thakur in his Arati, Chit Ghana Kai. Understood? Chit means consciousness, Ghana means congealed, Kai means body. So Thakur's body is not made of flesh, bones like us. It is the consciousness congealed which has become Chiram. So that is also from that vision. That is also Swamiji's direct experience also. So this is the up to last time's reading explained. Now let us proceed from para 10. Now what happened to Narendra? Totally gone, thrown out of balance. And sometimes consciously, sometimes totally gone. So, Narendra's conviction about the Master, as the result of his wonderful direct experience, Narendra must have been astounded when that change in his mental state was produced for the second time. Not same change, but change produced by the second time, by the influence of the Master's wonderful power. He felt in his heart of hearts how unavailing the power of his mind and intellect was. He used to feel he is very strong. Compared with that insuperable divine power. Insuperable? What is the meaning? Duratikramaniya Daiva Shakti. Oh, insuperable. That means we cannot go beyond that. Atikramaniya, Duratikramaniya. We cannot go beyond that. That is insuperable. We cannot be superior to that. Such power. And Narendra's own power, Akinchitkar. Unavailing. His former impression about the Master, that he was a monomaniac, was changed. How he can be monomaniac with so much power and consciously is doing things? But it cannot be said that he understood the meaning and purpose of what the master said to him in seclusion when he was at his lotus feet for the first time at Dakshineshwar. Why monomaniac? Because you are so and so, you are so and so. He felt his Vishnadatta's son. The master, he felt, was an extraordinary great soul, possessed of divine power. The master could, at will, the master could turn at will the mind of a man like him to a higher direction. And with it, he understood that as the master's will was completely identified with that of the divine Lord, the kind of desire did not arise in the master's mind in respect of that means why he is doing to Swamiji, why is not doing to others. So he cannot question God. God knows his purpose and he is doing that. Naren had to come to these conclusions, no? Because he is completely identified with that of the divine Lord. That kind of desire did not arise in the master's mind in respect of all. And it was not a small piece of good fortune for him to have the grace of such a sublime soul without asking for it. He had not asked. And Thakur's love and kindness and desire to send him to the highest consciousness, unique. It is will of the Lord, nothing else. The consequent change of Narendra's conception of the Guru. Now this Western education and Brahma Samaj, they do not believe in a Guru at all. I am a man, you are a man. So why you can teach me? But now it's a power. Narendra was compelled to come to the aforesaid conclusion and to change many of his former conceptions in the wake of it. He had formerly a great objection to accept as guru or spiritual guide one who possessed small powers and visions and was weak like himself, and to engage himself in carrying out indiscriminately whatever he said. The same mistake in me will lead me to mistake. It is needless to say that that attitude was confirmed when he joined the Brahma Samaj. They confirmed the same type. As a result of the events of those 2 days, that conception of his was severely shaken. He understood that such souls, though rare, nobody like me, there are rare souls, are actually born in the world. Not everybody, rare. Souls whose extraordinary love. Why wanted to do this? Love. Purity, penance, and renunciation. Penance is tapasya. Renunciation is vairagya. Far surpass the conception of God existing in the little minds and intellects. So about God, we have some idea as per our mind. Then Swamiji used to say about Thakur later on, Ishwarar Bap. So, Father of Ishwar. So the concept about God itself trampled. So Swamiji has said that we cannot make conception about God unless we see an avatar. So much revolution in this Western educated young man. It is all for our sake. We do not understand. We are born after 150 years of Thakur. We say we could have been born at that time That time to understand Thakur's divinity, how many people? Madman or a high soul, Parama, that's all. So now we are born under the atmosphere, though the whole world will not accept. But many people do know that. In the little minds and intellects of ordinary men, therefore, if they are accepted as gurus, ordinary men will be greatly benefited. Still not avatar. Avatar he has told. Avatar he has not told. He says conception of God, transcending conception of God himself. So you can accept them as gurus. They will guide us rightly. And they have no self-interest. They are doing everything out of love only. Ordinary man will be greatly benefited. Consequently, he was ready to accept the master as the guru. Ready to accept him, he did not accept immediately. But he could not go so far as to accept indiscriminately whatever the master said, till the buddhi is there. So whatever the Thakur says, I'll analyze, find out, verify, then accept. This is the quality of the great minds. They do not become subservient immediately. Now these rogues or rascals, as Ramappa and others, everybody becomes like a surveillant to them. Otherwise, people hate them, detest them. But under that spell, Narendra grew in renunciation and detachment in the company of the master. Vairagya and Tyaga actually. Or anasakti if you like. The idea that God could not be realized without renunciation prevailed in Narendra's mind from his boyhood because of his sanskara. It was due to his impressions from previous births. This accounts for the fact that although he became a regular member of the Brahma Samaj, he was never inclined to join their meetings and associations for the reform of the institution of marriage. This idea of renunciation, latent in him, now grew wonderfully as he had the blessed privilege of meeting the all-renouncing master and of being acquainted with his extraordinary powers. So renunciation has given him more powers than ordinary man. It is not attracted by the power that were renounced, but the effect of renunciation is not you become useless, you become more powerful. Narendra resolved not to accept anything said by the master without tasting it. So this tasting by Narendra is helpful to all of us. We believe now. And that test shows the quality of the inner thing. But one thing became the greatest concern of Narendra's thought from now on. On coming in contact with such great powerful soul, the human mind, he thought, generally believes in every word they say without weighing it properly or at all. Without weighing it properly or without weighing it at all. And he must save himself from that. Therefore, although he was now cherishing great respect and reverence for the master on account of the events of the 2 days mentioned above, he was nevertheless determined never to accept anything regarding the master's visions and experiences without personally having an immediate knowledge of immediate knowledge. Means reason and other things will not do. If he gets that experience, then he will accept. Or subjecting them to a most rigorous test of reason, both rigorous test of reason or experience. Even if it led him to incur the displeasure of the master, which never happened. But if I told you one funny incident. I told one day, myself and Vidyut Maharaj went for a bandara in an ashram. And by mistake, we reached half an hour early. There was a book lying there, rules for that devotees of the ashram. And the first rule was never analyze or criticize the sadhu's character. Never test them. Blindly accept what they are telling. And Vidyut Maharaj threw that book on me, read. And Thakur says the sadhu should be judged in the day, it should be judged in the night, and then accept. So Thakur is free for anybody's examination. And what happens, the more you examine it, more you grow. In the beginning of Leelaprasanga, we read that. Saradananda Swami just said, more you handle it, more you weigh it, you will reach Brahma Gyan. Even if it led him to incur the displeasure of the master. Consequently, just as on the one hand, he was solicitous of keeping his mind always ready to receive the unknown truths of the spiritual world, ready. So on the other hand, he engaged himself since then in putting to a severe test the master's wonderful behavior and vision. Otherwise, ordinary people will accept that or say, I can't understand that. Can't understand, try to understand. Narendra's conduct since then. It was evident to the keen intellect of Narendra that only by accepting the master as an incarnation of God could the master's strange words during their first meeting, because of which he had considered him to a monomaniac, yield a consistent. If he is God, then you are like that, can be understood. But how could his truth-seeking and rational mind accept the fact all of a sudden? Truth-seeking and rational. So he decided that if ever God gave him the power of understanding those things, he would discuss them, thus relegating the problem to a dark corner of his mind. He now devoted himself to learning from and discussing with the master how to realize God and people. So concentrating on the aim of life, discuss with Thakur and learning from him how to realize God. That his mind became one-pointed on that. And people said, the then mental state of Narendra. A powerful mind feels a strong resistance from within when at the time of accepting a new truth, it has to change its former conviction. So that resistance comes. Narendra was now in that predicament. Though acquainted with the master's wonderful power, he could not completely accept him. And though feeling attracted, he tried to stand up aloof from him because again some influence will come. We shall see later how matters stood as the result of such an effort of his. Now what will intervene? Anticipate? Master's love for him. He will be conquered by Thakur's love. And Thakur's love consists in giving him full freedom. You do what I'll give. I'll love. That caught Narendra. So we move on to chapter 5. Same topic as we anticipated. The master's selfless love and Narendranath. Selfless, no self in that. No selfishness, no self. That is love. Real love is that. the extraordinary experience of Narendra in his early life. Now, strange, he was a special person. So strange experiences he was having from childhood. And Master understood all those. He saw a light before falling asleep. First, 2, 3 experiences will be there. First is this. Narendra, we said, was born with wonderful good impressions. This fact accounts for a number of unusual experiences he used to have even before he visited the Master. We narrate here a few of them as examples. Narendra said, I used to see all my life a wonderful point of light between my eyebrows. Between my eyebrows means outside. Outside, not in the body. As soon as I shut my eyes in order to go to sleep, as soon as he shut his eyes, he saw a light. So the experience is super sensuous. As soon as I shut my eyes in order to go to sleep, and I used to observe attentively its various changes, so that it might be convenient to see it. I used to lie on my bed in the way people bow down touching the ground with their foreheads. Understood? On the stomach, not on the back. Because you want to see that light. When you salute somebody, then you touch the ground. So like that he sleeps. That the extraordinary point kept changing in colors and increasing in size, became gradually converted into the form of a ball, and bursting at last, covered my body from head to foot with white liquid light. Liquid means mobile light. As soon as that happened, I lost consciousness and fell asleep. See, sleep was not normally of tired senses, lost outside consciousness and sleep. Now, because of his experience, he thought everybody is like that one. I believed that all people went to sleep that way. I was long under that impression. When I grew up and began to practice meditation, that point of life used to come before me, not when he's trying to sleep. First of all, as soon as I closed my eyes and concentrated my mind on it. In those days, I daily practiced meditation with a few friends according to the instruction of Maharishi Devendranath. We talked among ourselves about the nature of visions and experiences each of us had at that. At that time, I came to know from what they said that they never had the vision of such light and that none of them went to sleep in that way. Second example. Sometimes coming to a certain place or in contact with some thing or person, he used to feel he had already known them. Again, since my childhood, it happened sometime that when I saw a thing, place or person, I had the impression that I was very familiar with it or him. I thought I had seen it or him somewhere before. I tried to recollect but failed. But that could never convince me that I had not seen them before. This happened very often. Perhaps I was in the company of friends in some place and there was a discussion on a certain subject. At that time, someone made a remark and immediately I remembered I have had talks on this subject with them in this house long before, and this person made the same remark at that time also. I tried to recollect, but could not make out when and where I had talked thus with them. When and where means somewhere else he might have talked and is wrongly placing it there. But no. When I came to know the doctrine of rebirth, I thought I might perhaps have been acquainted with those places and persons during a previous life, and that a partial recollection of them sometimes came to my mind in that manner. But that is not the explanation. He is telling us because this came to his mind. I was afterwards convinced that such a conclusion on this subject was not reasonable. Then I will say this very place and all that. Now it appears. Now means footnote. Narendra told us of this extraordinary experience of his after we become acquainted. Soon after we become acquainted with him. But he came to this latter conclusion only during the last part of his life. So that is now. Now it appears to me that before I was born, I somehow, as on a cinematographic film, saw those persons with whom I was to be familiar in this life. The future life was shown to him like a cinema. And so he thinks that he has seen this. Saw those persons with whom I was to be familiar in this life, and a memory of those arose in my mind from time to time after I was. Hearing of the pure life and of the ecstasy of the master from many people. One day I told you about that principle. That is given in the footnote now. When he came to Dakshineshwar, Narendra, who he said before, was about to appear for the FA examination from the General Assembly's Institution, Calcutta. The liberal-minded scholar, though he was a Christian, he was not that narrow type of Christian. So the liberal-minded scholar, Mr. H.T., was then the principal of the college. Narendranath had great regard for this English gentleman for his many-sided genius, pure life, and his loving behavior toward the student. Special quality. One day, as the professor of literature felt suddenly ill, Mr. H.T. came to teach literature to the FA student. In the course of a discussion on the poems of Wordsworth, he made mention of the poets going into a trance when he, the poet, experienced the beauty of nature. As the students did not understand what a trance was, he explained it to them properly and at last said that state is produced by purity of mind and its concentration on one particular object. A person fit for such a state is rarely seen. I have seen Ramakrishna Paramahansa of Dakshineshwar attain that state among contemporaries. That means these days nobody is there practically, but Thakur is there. You will understand it if you go and see once that state of his. Hearing thus of the master for the first time from Mr. H.T., Narendra saw the master first at Surendra's house. Again, as he frequented the Brahma Samaj, he might have heard of him there also. So already knew means these two sources. And we have seen that in between his refusal to marriage came. Hearing of the pure life and of the ecstasy of the Master from many people, Narendra came to see him. He never imagined Narendra's direct experience of the Master's divine power, his reflection on and wonder at them. He never imagined, even in a dream, that such he saw him, that when he saw him, he could undergo any mental change or wonderful experience. But he did undergo. The experiences he had had before seemed to be commonplace and trifling. His visions and all that were commonplace and trifling compared to the depth of experience he has that I could touch. Commonplace and trifling compared with those extraordinary ones he had on the 2 days of his second and third visits to the Master. His uncommon intelligence had to accept defeat when he tried to fathom the depth of the Master's personality. The knotty problem eluded solution, for he could find not an iota of reason to doubt that it was through the inscrutable divine power of the Master that he had had those wonderful experiences. On that there is no doubt that he got the experience because Master touched him. And the more he mused on it, the greater grew his amazement. I could not understand. How great was Narendra's fitness for spirituality from his deducing something. One is simply flabbergasted when one thinks of the wonderful experience Narendra had during his second visit to the Master. Such an experience, according to the scriptures, occurs in the life of an ordinary person as the result of long practice of penance and renunciation. And when it appears somehow, the man is beside himself with joy to feel the manifestation of God in the Guru and entirely surrenders himself to him. It is no small surprise that Narendra did not do so. And it is clear from this how great his fitness was for the spiritual world, not to influence quickly. He did not altogether lose himself, only because he ranked very high in regard to spiritual fitness. So he is telling that two extremes look like. It is not inertia tamo. It is superabundance of sattva. And it was because of this uncommon fitness of his that he could restrain himself so wonderfully, not influenced by Thakur. What was more, he engaged himself for a very long time in testing the extraordinary character and behavior of the Master and in accepting their cause. But although he could check himself and did not completely surrender to the Master, it is an undeniable fact that he was greatly attracted towards him. About this analysis, what he has said later on, to Nagmasha he has uttered one Sanskrit line. Vayam tatvan veshad hata madhukaratvam khalu kruti. You write down. Vayam tatvan veshad hata madhukara tvam khalu kruti. Madhukara is the bee. Bee sits on a flower and sucks the honey. He does not go about analyzing this or that or that. We, Tattvan Veshat, that means for searching the truth analytically. Hata, we are killed. That is not to Narendra, who accepted everything told by Thakur and so could taste the honey of Thakur's life. That is Narendra's expression for that. But in the beginning, analyze, more analyze. That is for us, for the world. We know Thakur now. how far the master was attracted to Narendra. Thakur accepted all this. Examine as much as you want, taste it. The master on his part felt a strong attraction for Narendra from the day they met. Possessed of the immediate knowledge of Brahman, the high-minded guru became restless owing to an anxious eagerness to pour all the realizations of his spiritual life into the mind of the very worthy disciple. This is the relation. In Christianity, there is a saying, the seeking sinner meted the seeking savior. You have to understand that word. Sinner is an aspirant here, and savior is the guru. So you are searching for a guru, guru is searching for you. That is the spiritual law. So generalizing, possessed of the immediate knowledge of Brahman, the high-minded guru became restless, owing to an anxious eagerness to pour all the realizations of his spiritual life into the mind of the very worthy disciple. Totapuri, seeing Thakur said, you are Uttam, and he tried on the first day to give him the Rupal Samadhi, and Thakur got it. And then he was surprised. Here Narendra resisted and then got it later on. That profound eagerness cannot be measured. That is something like if in this body and mind it has been realized, why not in this body and mind? That is it. That unmotivated restlessness, no motive of peace, free from the slightest tinge of selfishness, occurs in fulfillment of the divine will in the minds of the gurus who are perfectly poised and contented in the self alone. In Gita, Sambandha Bhashya, Shankar is telling, Swaprayojana abhave bhutanu jigruksha. He taught Arjun because when great people like Arjun will receive it and practice it in life, it will be spread throughout the world. Gurus who are perfectly poised and contented in the self alone, it is under such inspiration that the great souls, the teachers of the world, so it is not ordinary guru, teachers of the world. The moment they see perfectly fit disciples, make them reach the safe heaven of the knowledge of Brahma. Not heaven, heaven. Means, what is heaven? Currently, this word is very much being used in a ulta direction. Heaven for the terrorist. Heaven is a safe place. It's called heaven. The moment they see perfectly fit disciples, make them reach the safe heaven of the knowledge of Brahma. That is the only resting place. And the shackles of desires of those disciples fall off. Their life's goal is attained and perfection reached. Something is there in Bengali. No. Aj. Then let us read. This is known in the scriptures as the Shambhavi initiation. We read that during that Guru Bhava remaining things. This is that eagerness. Spontaneously they want to give. More than the other man wants to receive. Their desire is stronger. The masters attempt to give Narendra the knowledge of Brahman on the very first day. There is no doubt that the master felt strongly inclined to induct Narendra at once into ecstasy, thus making him an aura Brahman. On the very first day he came alone to Dakshineshwar. Came alone, with not friends. For when 3 or 4 years after this, Narendra surrendered completely to the master and was again and again praying to him to grant him Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The master would allude to this event and say jestingly to him in our presence, "Why did you not then say that you had your parents to serve?" "Look here," said he at other times, "a man died and became a ghost. He lived alone for a long time and sorely felt the need of a companion. He ran in search of one whenever he heard that a man had met with an accident and died." That is how the ghosts are made. When this was prarabdha, when that thing which has to be experienced this life, without that it gets cut suddenly. Then they become the ghost. For on such an occasion, the man turns into a ghost, given that. But the dead man, he would invariably find much to his chagrin, could be saved from turning into a ghost either by the touch of the water of the Ganga or by some other purifying agency. So he had to return every time quite disconsolate and was forced to reveal only light. The poor fellow's want of companion was never satisfied. I am also exactly in that position. I thought when I saw you, this time perhaps I shall have a companion. But you too said you had saved your parents, so I could not have a companion. Thus would the master mention that day's event and very often jest with Narendra. Here what we are telling is explained now. The difference between Narendra's wonderful experience of the first and the second day, second and third visit. Noting the terrible fear gripping Narendra's mind when he was at the point of attaining Samadhi, the masters ceased making further efforts. But it raised doubts in the master's mind. He doubted the truth of the visions and experiences he had had about Narendra sometime previously. This is, we guess, the reason why he overwhelmed him with his power when Narendra came to Dakshineshwar for the third time and knew from him many secrets of his life. His anxiety was removed only when he found Narendra's answer to his questions, telling exactly with his own vision. This proves that Narendra did not have the same kind of ecstasy at Dakshineshwar on both the days. Om सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्तं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. ओम शांति शांति शांति. हरि ओम तत्सत्. श्री रामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु.
Jaya